Hello and welcome to week 3 of Trauma and its Impact on Child Development. Review of week 2. Great discussion. Good job extending that discussion and conversation on the discussion boards. There was a lot of great responses to the initial posts, and the initial posts were really good. Overall, APA formatting is looking pretty good. The template, if you still don't have it, please reach out to me by email and I will just send it directly to you. I don't know what's going on with Blackboard, but it's not accepting the file on either of the courses I'm doing right now. Just a reminder going forward to try to stick to the page requirements because I don't want to be reading 20 page papers. I don't have the time for that with my regular job as well. Don't actually need to worry about that because I haven't seen anybody do it wrong. Something to continue to work. I'm sorry, I still have a lung infection of some sort that we haven't figured out yet. Some continued reflection to think about moving forward is just to always keep in mind who is this work for, who does it benefit, and who is defining success, and how is that success defined. And lastly, how can you share what you know? Because just learning this stuff and having it in, having it in your head, being aware of it, isn't going to change anything unless you're sharing it with the people around you. So how are you going to do that? Another thing, this week's video will probably be a little shorter because when we look at our readings for the week, there are 8, including several videos. So I'm going to try to keep this closer to the 12 minutes than the 20 minutes if I can. Themes and thoughts. I'm going to start on the bottom, work my way up here. First of all, I want to clarify what I meant about uploading assignments. I made it much more confusing than it needed to be. So if I go into an assignment here, this is my student preview, and say I'm going to submit my assignment number 2. I don't mean to copy and paste here. What I mean is to either drag and drop your files as it says, or to use these last 3 buttons to attach, insert content. This is how I actually insert my YouTube videos, or to do a link. I prefer the last 2, the attachments or insert content. Linking is fine, it works. What I don't want you to do is just to copy and paste a Dropbox or Google Drive link in here, because I've run into issues where, I get a Google Drive link to an assignment and I don't have the right permissions to see it. So I'm emailing the student back and forth trying to get those rights, and it's long after the due date by the time I actually can look at it. So that just creates more headaches than it's worth. You don't need to copy and paste into here. You can just do an attachment and put the Word doc or whatever you're working with right there. I'm sorry for creating that confusion. That's not what I meant. I was trying to, save the problems with Google Drive not having, usually it's Google Drive, not having the right permissions given. All right, that was that one. I am very much looking forward to reading everybody's first assignment. I did a quick peek and everybody has already turned it in. I will discuss those in week 4, hopefully some general ideas of what came out, and I'm hoping to have them all graded by Wednesday, which I believe is the 20th. Yeah, 20th. That is my plan. I've been playing some new video games, but I told myself I'm not allowed to play again until I'm done grading, so that should give me some extra motivation to work on those. Both discussion boards were excellent. I found it very interesting that in the first one, the most common thing that you guys noticed impacting a fetus's brain development was maternal stress, which was the entire topic of the second discussion board. So I'm just wondering if we can think about what can we do as a society to actually help with this if it is so prevalent. I was also very impressed. You guys did an amazing job responding to different peers. Often in discussion boards, it ends up being, 3 or 4 initial posts get all the responses, and then a lot of people don't get responded to. But I think in my quick glance through that I've done already, everybody had at least 1 response. That's awesome. Next, several of you over the last couple of weeks have asked how that I do classroom management in prison. And I want to preface this with the strategies that I use in prison and that most of the teachers I work with use in prison, we would never use with children. A lot of the things we do are actually like, do not do this. For instance, I openly joke with my students and make fun of them and let them make fun of me. They're adults, and that is one of the ways that we kind of build that rapport without talking about personal things. For instance, there was a guy in my class who was making fun of the guy next to him for losing his hair or for his receding hairline. And the guy making fun was bald. And I asked, well, where's yours? All the way back here? And because we have that back and forth and they can make fun of me as well, that actually, I think, helps them see that I see them as human beings and I'm going to treat them like adults and allow them to have, you know, open, friendly conversations with me without always having to be authority. But one of the things I wanted to actually highlight here is that my management style is different depending on the students I have in class. So I could have 4 completely different management styles in the same day because we run 4 90-minute classes. I would split up my students by both age and then demeanor. In general, the younger guys, which I would say 18 to 30, tend to be the most difficult. And the older guys, which I would say over 60, also tend to be difficult. That middle group can be anywhere in between, either being super difficult or super easy to work with. But I would say that in general, that 30 to 60 group in prison tends to be compliant, meaning they're going to do what I tell them to do and they're not going to make a lot of issues. So with the younger guys, I tend to lean more heavily on trying not to be like the school that they just had that didn't work for them. So I don't do much lecture. Instead, I do very short lessons. I do small group assignments or activities, and I lean heavily on one-on-one help, either from me, the tutors I hire, which are other incarcerated individuals who already have a diploma, or encouraging them to work with each other. So in my math class, we wrote our own curriculum, and it's standards-based around the idea that the student owns their learning. So I'm not going to do an hour-and-a-half lecture. I might do a 10-minute lesson. But most of the class is them working on the content that I've given them, which they're all starting at different points, so they're all over the place in class. And then asking me, tutors, or each other one-on-one questions so that they're helping each other learn, and by helping each other learn, they understand it better. Other methods I use, if I have a lot of younger guys in the same class and they're, I would say more behavioral challenged would be the nicest way to put it. That's generally when I have that problem. I get much more strict more quickly. So then it is no talking unless you're asking math questions. It is, you need to be working. If you're not working, I'm going to kick you out. No disrupting other people. Like, all of the rules come out for that group really fast, and they are enforced for everybody. When I have them, what I would call my average class, which is, you know, the wide range of everybody, and over half the class is either just compliant or actively working, that's when I open it up more to have more of a community. We're making jokes. I'll have some time at the end of the class where we'll actually just like discuss current events if they want to discuss current events. Or they'll ask me questions about things they discussed in other classes and I'll give them my ideas. And we'll have more open discussions. A lot of times we end up discussing things like politics or legislative actions that have to do with prison. And I'll be very frank with them, like, it's an election year. So like 2020 election, they had some ideas about things that were going to get changed for Minnesota prisons. And this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And in almost every one of my classes, I had the very frank discussion that it's a election year. Nobody's making you get out of prison more quickly. And then after the election, when none of that had happened and all of the laws that they had been talking about didn't even get moved forward or didn't make it past committee, we talked about why that was. So it goes from one end of the spectrum where it's, these are the rules, we're only doing the work that's for this class because those guys kind of need that structure, to these guys are more self-motivated and I'm actually going to pull them away from the mandatory work to do just higher order thinking and discussions. Another thing that I wanted to just touch on is that I actively use peer pressure in my classroom. And that is usually with some of the guys who are in that middle group, 30 to 60, or even bordering on the older end, who have really dug in and decided I need to do this now because I'll never do it if I don't get it when I leave prison, and using them to, you know, talk to the younger guys or other guys their age who aren't, accepting that this is probably the best chance they have to actually get a high school credential, and just letting them talk about it, not actively engaging in trying to convince the person who doesn't want to do it, but letting the people around him who have done that, both in their actions and in their words, do it. So letting those off-topic conversations go because they are peer pressuring towards a good thing, which isn't something that we often get in prison. So when it happens, I just let it go. So I probably muddy the waters a lot because my classroom management style in prison is very scattershot depending on the students I have. But if you want to know more, keep asking questions. And like I said right away, a lot of the things that I do in prison, I wouldn't do if I was working with children or even adults outside of prison, just because it is a very unique setting with unique needs that I work in. And every single one of them has gone through some pretty significant trauma, and a lot of them had significant trauma in their school settings beforehand. So I try to make sure that my classroom isn't like the ones that didn't work for them before. Now, moving on to week 3. Our theme is ACEs. That will be a huge one throughout the entire program. If you've already heard of it, excellent. If you haven't, dig into it. It's very interesting. And complex and developmental trauma. This week, you'll watch this video. You'll complete the discussion boards, which I believe there are 2. Sorry, I lost my spot. And then we'll just do a quick look ahead to assignment 2. For readings this week, there are 8. A couple articles, a lot of videos, and some websites to look at. Try to give you more time to do that. They're going to focus on the biological effects of ACEs and, you know, how we might actually just see these without knowing that what the specific ACEs are. We're going to talk about the learning brain versus the survival brain. A lot of you have already discussed this in your posts, and it's just kind of a great language to use with students, staff, and parents to kind of describe that difference and why maybe their student is really struggling because they're using their survival brain instead of their learning brain, because you can't use your learning brain if you're using your survival brain. We're going to start looking at some first looks at interventions or mitigation strategies. These are, again, great videos and articles to share with teams. If you have other people that you work with that are interested in this stuff, but you know, don't really want to go back to school, this is some great stuff. And lastly, this video here, the Sesame Street and Communities. I don't know what the additional link was, so either it's already in here. It's not. I'm sorry, we used kind of a shared slide deck, and I thought I had found an additional link, but I don't know where it is, so I'm gonna just get rid of that. All right, preview of assignment 2. Your second assignment is the early child development impact on student learning. So the purpose of this is to examine the role and impact of prenatal and perinatal forms of trauma and what they have on developing child's emotional, neurological, social, and physical health, and then describe the implications for education settings. So this is just your view of it. You're going to select one of these 3 topics, not all. Brain development during gestation and early childhood, the interplay of genes and environment, or the impact of stress and trauma on child development. You're going to write this in third person, so you should not be using I think. This is going to be more of a scholarly paper, so your voice will be there, but it shouldn't be in the form of I statements. This should be very research-based. In your introduction paragraph, you're going to explain why you selected this topic and what are the key components and the reader should be expect to be reviewed. So for instance, this paper will discuss the interplay of genes and environment because XYZ. This paper will discuss how the interplay of genes and environment do X, Y, and Z. So you're not going to say, I chose this topic because, and this paper will discuss this instead of, or in this paper, the reader should expect this to be discussed. That's fine. Just don't say, I will discuss. Then, the following paragraphs you're going to do in very broad strokes, examine and analyze what is the importance of understanding the development of child's brain as it relates to the topic you picked. Make sure you cite your research. And then what is your role as professional educator to understand this topic and create a successful learning environment for students? And remember, again, this is a third person paper. So instead of saying my role, it should be, the role of a teacher or the role of a paraprofessional, principal, whatever it is. In conclusion, and make sure you use that template that I already gave you for assignment 1. Again, if you still don't have the template, reach out to me so I can send it to you. I don't know why Blackboard doesn't like me this semester, but it just won't accept that Word document. I've tried it like 5 times. Don't like it. So that is in the assignment section. It is also on the syllabus. That's that for that. If you have any questions, just remember to email me and I will get right back to you. If you have more in-depth questions, go ahead and email me asking for a phone or Zoom meeting and we can arrange that. I will continue to try to respond within 24 hours. Have a great week. I look forward to reading all of your assignments and hopefully you will all have that rubric in your inbox by Wednesday. Have an excellent week.